Hey guys, time for another video, and as you can tell from the title, it is a review. A review of the Spyderco Jr. Yeah, so let's get into this. This knife was designed by Romanian Alexandru Diaconescu. I think that's how you pronounce it. You know, American pronunciation. Yeah, so I'll start off with some specs. Overall, this knife is 7¼ inches. It's perfect size, in my opinion, for an EDC knife. Blade to handle ratio, anyway. Speaking of which, the handle is 4 1/8 of an inch long, and the total blade length is 3.2 inches with a 3 1/8 of an inch cutting edge. As you can see, there's a little spot there that's not part of the cutting edge. Anyway, this knife is 2.9 ounces overall, which, you know, feels about that. Made in Seki City, Japan. I believe that's on that side. Right there. And while this is focused in, Spyderco logo, VG10, and there is the maker's logo, maker mark, which is a really cool mark. Yeah, that's one of the cooler maker marks that I've ever seen, so that's a plus. The steel VG10, yeah, very easy to sharpen, very high performing for EDC. Also very rust resistant, which is a nice addition there. I carried this knife all throughout the month of June. Got some good use on it, went on a couple outdoor trips. Went to go visit my brother at his college, and you know, poor college student doesn't have many kitchen utensils. I use this for most of my meals, most of the food prep I did with and for him, and it did great. As you can see, the blade is a little bit off center, which, you know, not a big deal. It doesn't rub up against anything. That, you know, I loosened it up a little bit so it would be smoother. This does come a little stiff, which is not a big deal because that's really how it was supposed to be designed. You know, it's supposed to be designed for a kid. You don't want a knife that, you know, is being flicked around and easy to swing around. You know, you don't want to give that to a little kid in case he accidentally hurts himself. He doesn't know what he's doing, or she. You know, no discrimination. Yeah, so just loosened it up a little bit. It's a little bit smoother. Yeah, a lot of people, I think, neglect the fact that this was made for a young child, but I mean, obviously it fits great in the hand. Speaking of which, the ergonomics, my fingers fit perfectly in here. You got two right there, and then the two kind of fit after this palm swell perfectly. It feels great in the hand. And I sort of have medium-large size hands. I mean, there's the knife next to my hand. I'll see if I can zoom out. Nope. Forgot I was already zoomed out. You know, maybe I'll bring this tripod up a little bit. Sorry for that. Yeah, so if your hand's that big, it's gonna fit fine. Yeah, the little very noticeable choil guard here does a really good job, you know, feeling comfortable, feeling like your hands, obviously it's not going anywhere forward anytime soon, but you don't feel like, you know, you might slip out on accident that way. Yeah, it just fits in your hand really well. And one thing I noticed is if this blade were to close on you, if the lock were to fail, you would not cut yourself if you're holding it like this, because the little tang there does not let the sharpened edge hit any of your fingers, so it stops just in time. Of course, that would hurt really bad if you were, you know, really heavy using something, came back and hit something and it went forward. That would suck. But your hand's gonna be all right as far as free of blade cuts. What else? Let's see. Yep, the clip on this. The clip, I really like the wire clip, but it is really tight on this knife. Like I'm really have to pull this forward just to get it to lift up, and it does. If you're wearing kind of thick material pants, you know, cargo shorts, cargo pants, jeans, it does take a little bit of force. You might have to like pull back on the pocket to get it in, and then getting it out, you really got to kind of pull out tough. But you know, maybe if I loosen the just screw on here and maybe Loctite it into a position where this can kind of freely move up and down, that might work, or if I bend it out a little bit. But as it comes from the factory, the clip is really tight, and that's not that great of a thing. I mean, you're not going to lose this knife, that's a plus, but you know, maybe that's also part of the being designed for a kid. You know, it won't fall out of his pocket, you know, running around doing all that stuff. But yeah, who knows. There's no backspacer on it, which is I like that. It's a flow-through design, very easy to clean out with some compressed air if anything gets in there. I think this is a great way. I think most knives should be designed this way, unless there's some other inherent design flaw or design that doesn't allow for that, which I think this one had to be because of the compression lock, which is pretty cool. I've actually never had a compression lock knife before. This is my first one, and I really like it. It took some getting used to, as far as, you know, the lock being up here and not being a lock back, but you know, you get used to that in just a matter of minutes, really. Yeah, like I said, this is a great size. The blade shape I really like. Some people would rather have a clip point. I've seen some modifications here on YouTube and on some forums where they just kind of grind this down into either a Bowie or a clip point drop, or yeah, I think this is a drop point. Honestly, don't know. Maybe kind of looks like a spear to me. Maybe I should have looked that up beforehand. You know, it's a really broad blade with a nice flat grind. It cuts really well. Here, let me get some paper out. I mean, I've sharpened this thing up, which, yeah, it's very easy to sharpen. As you can see, there's a really nice relief edge. It is so easy to sharpen, and it's just great. You know, let's see. Yeah, that just takes no effort. Like, I'm trying to do that, no pressure. Yeah, it's awesome. This thing gets very sharp, and it's like the perfect thickness for it to just slice through anything. Like I said, great for food prep. Cut up vegetables, made a stir fry with this. It was awesome. This just blasted through any vegetable. It was really easy to use, and yeah, it did get a little dirty, but you know, very easy to clean. That's always a plus. I think you can kind of see a little bit of rust there from earlier. I gotta clean that off. That was from, I had this in my waistband on a really hot day. I was outside doing some exercise stuff, and yeah, it was like right here, got some rust on it, but that came off pretty easily. And actually, after this video, I'm gonna get a Q-tip and then get some rust remover and get the bottom of that tang up. So yeah, good thing I noticed that. You can flick this knife open. It's tough, especially from behind a tripod. Yeah, almost got it there. I mean, yeah, like that, you can flick it open. It's not the easiest knife to flick open, and you can't flick it closed. Definitely you can't. The compression lock is purposefully tight. I mean, that's about as much as you can flick it forward. I mean, unless you really, really whip this thing down, you're not going to be able to close it in one motion. It's like a weird combination of, it's stiff, but it's a very smooth knife. The lock is very stiff, as in, you know, it takes a little bit to flick it down, and then it's not going to swing all the way closed, but opening it is very smooth. And I think that might have to do with, instead of phosphor bronze bushings or washers in this, they used Teflon ones. They're kind of white instead of the bronze. We'll see if I can show that with this. Maybe it's not going to show up, but yeah, it's I don't know, maybe that's what gives it really smooth action, but it is very, very easy to open and very smooth. If I hadn't said that already. When this is closed, a lot of people had concerns that, you know, your finger comes pretty close to the blade. I'll see if I can zoom this in and show you that, you know, even me, kind of a fatter finger, it's tough to see in this lighting, but my finger is not, like, I can push this in as much as I want, and I didn't even touch the blade on that. So yeah, and I don't see why that would ever be a real concern, because I mean, you close it two-handed, like, your finger's not going to need to come down in there, and you don't, like, whip it out with a compression lock or put your finger there when the blade's closed. I mean, So I don't see why that would be an issue. But some people, you know, they're like, oh, I would never do that, never want this knife. You can cut your finger on it if it's closed. Just don't be an idiot with it, and you have to really try. If you cut your finger on this when it's closed, you must have really been trying. Yeah, so don't do that. I mean, I'm sure if I wanted to, I could get my pinky in there, and even then there's not enough room to wiggle back and forth. You need to push it in, and even then you would feel it before you cut yourself, so it's not a big deal. Yes, the only downsides on this knife, the really overly tight clip and the price. The price is a little much for this knife. I've always loved this design. As soon as I saw it, I knew that I wanted it at some point, at least to try out. You know, worst comes to worst, you can sell it, get most of your money back on something like this. Maybe, you know, you could probably, who knows, but anyway, this knife I got this for about 120. Yeah, that's a lot for this size and steel, which, you know, I have no issue with it being VG10, easier to sharpen than like S30V or something like that, and it performs fine. Like, you really can't tell. Like, I don't know. You'll never be able to tell in one sitting if it was VG10 versus S30V, unless you like really needed to hard use it, in which case, you know, go for like a fixed blade or something. But yeah, got this with some graduation money, so it wasn't that big of a sting to my, you know, personal account, I guess. So yeah, not a big deal to me. But yeah, so overall, I really like this knife. If it was just a looser clip and a cheaper price point, that'd be nice. But you know, I understand. Seki City knives made in Japan, I've heard, are about 1.5 times the cost of a knife made other places. I don't know, maybe that's, I don't know. I have no clue what the politics or economic whatever's behind that are, so I'm not going to pretend like I know. Yeah, in conclusion, this is a great knife. You should definitely try it if you want to save up for one. Honestly, if you want to save up for a knife, don't like compromise. If you want a junior, get a junior. It'll just take some time to save up for if you're kind of on a budget, but you can wait for it, trust me. I mean, just skip those $30, $40, like, oh, I'll just get a bunch of $30 or $40 knives. No, if you want a junior, save up for a junior. You won't regret it. It's awesome. I could honestly use this if I wanted, like, if I only had this as an EDC knife, that'd be fine. This thing works great. In fact, this is one of my favorite knives to carry, right behind the Manix 2 lightweight. I mean, it's smaller than that, but for its size, it is way, way beyond. I don't know. It performs better than you would think. Oh, and one last thing, the texturing on the spine works really well for, you know, grip. Your thumb doesn't slide forward. One of the other issues people have had, sort of, it's like, to get over before they want to get this knife, like a little hurdle in their decision making, is that you don't have that ramp going over the spider hole. The spider hole is like under the curve of the blade. It's really not an issue. This jimping is very effective for keeping your finger there, and the G10 is adequately grippy. It's not incredibly grippy, but you know, it'll keep your finger in place, so you don't have to worry about that. This review is starting to go a little bit long, so I'm going to wrap it up now. Yeah, Spyderco Jr., check it out. Thank you guys for watching, and subscribe, that'd be great. Thank you to those who have already subscribed, and thank you for watching. See you next video.